We have a fabulous interview with Dr. Gabriel Barkey, and also he's going to take us on a tour of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You mentioned that the church tour was very emotional and moving for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the church tour is just startling because there's so many holy places within that church, and you feel it the moment you walk in. Dr. Gabriel Barkey, or as we know him, Gabby, is brilliant, and you can tell the intensity of his intelligence as he's explaining things to you. He's also somewhat famous because he discovered the silver scrolls, which predate the Dead Sea Scrolls by 400 years. So he's a guy that's got a lot of experience in biblical archaeology. He's also very learned about the history and the evidence surrounding Jesus. So he's a perfect person to be taking you on this tour. So after we finish that rooftop interview, we take a walk to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and you walk in and there's the stone of anointing, and you know you're in this holy place. You can see the intensity of how people are experiencing this place. So I cannot wait for you to experience it with us. It's an amazing journey. Gabby, thank you so much for spending some time today. I'm very much looking forward to this day. You're going to take us on a little tour, and we're in this incredible location up here on the top of the Mamila Hotel, which is the roof deck, and we see a lot of sights here. So before we start rolling the cameras, you were pointing at varying buildings and giving me the different histories behind them. So this is a town rich with history, not only ancient history, but even more recent history.
It is located on the same spot and settled by humans for the last 6,000 years at least.
Wow.
And it had a very intensive history and still has. So never a dull moment in Jerusalem.
Understatement for sure. So what is your background? What got you involved in archaeology and the work that you do?
I was born in a place and time that nobody should be born in. That means I'm a product of Central Europe, Second World War. I was born on the day that my mother had to enter the ghetto, and actually my being alive is a miracle. I owe my life to the Russian dictator Joseph Stalin. Many others owe him their death. Yeah. I owe him my life. So in January of 1945, he entered the ghetto of Budapest in Hungary, and so I am alive. My parents and myself, we got here to Jerusalem in 1950, and I'm a Jerusalemite since then, and enjoys every minute of it. Since my childhood in Jerusalem, I was wandering around and collecting all kinds of artifacts, and I was curious to find out to whom did they belong, what is the significance of these finds. I picked up some coins, some pottery and other artifacts, and that drew me to archaeology from childhood. So I am in this business of archaeology in Jerusalem for over 50 years. And my first dig in Jerusalem took place in 1964, just after I finished my military service. Since then, I'm fascinated by what this city has to offer.
Yeah, and right now you're involved in a very interesting project, which is looking at, I guess you take, let's call them lay people or non-archaeologists, and take them through the process of sifting through dirt. But this dirt happens to come from the Temple Mount.
Listen, the Temple Mount is the soul, heart, and spirit of the Jewish people. It is the only holy place for Jews. All synagogues, even in the States, are directed towards the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the place which was first created by the Almighty, the rest of the world created around it. That is the place of the binding of Isaac. That is the place of the altar built by King David, who purchased the place from the last pre-Israelite ruler. That's the place of the first temple. That's the second temple's location. Even after the destruction of the Second Temple, the importance of the place did not diminish. 3 times a day, Jews are praying for the restoration of the Temple Mount and the Temple of Jerusalem. So one has also to remember that the Temple Mount is referred to more than 20 times in the New Testament. It was one of the focal points of the activities of Jesus in Jerusalem. He was presented as an infant upon the Temple Mount. He turned upside down the tables of the money changers in the Temple Mount, and there are many other references to the Temple Mount. So it is one of the most important historical and religious sites in the city. In addition, as a result of that, it is also the most important archaeological site in this country. And very interestingly, Jerusalem is one of the most excavated places upon earth. We have continuous excavations in Jerusalem by archaeologists for the last 150 years. On the other hand, the Temple Mount, the most important place, is a black hole in the archaeology of Jerusalem. There were never, ever any archaeological excavations taking place upon the Temple Mount. It was never touched by the spade of an archaeologist. Not even a single potsherd was published from the Temple Mount. So in light of this fact, I'm very proud that we could do something that comes close as possible to the archaeology and an excavation upon the Temple Mount. In 1999, a terrible crime happened. An illicit excavation with bulldozers took place upon the Temple Mount, which was motivated by political developments stemming in Washington, D.C., and the Islamic Trust of the Temple Mount dug an enormous pit in a place where even a toothbrush would be too large a tool to carry out excavations. They did it with bulldozers.
It's probably worth giving a little bit of the more recent political history, is that the Temple Mount was under the control of Jordan since 1947, 48. And in the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel was able to recapture it and had control of it. But that one part of the old city, you had the Temple Mount there that was given back to Jordan. Is that correct?
No. Jordan had control upon the Temple Mount as part of their conquest of certain parts of Palestine, British Palestine, that they conquered as a result of Israel's War of Liberation in 1948. In 1967, Jerusalem was reunified, and it is under Israeli control. It is the capital of the State of Israel. But the Temple Mount, in addition to its importance for Jews and Christians, is the third in its holiness for Islam. It is believed to be the final destination of the miraculous night journey of Prophet Muhammad from Arabia to the Far Mosque. And Far Mosque Al-Aqsa, the far one, is identified with the Temple Mount. All that, of course, stems from the fact that in the armies of Prophet Muhammad entering that place with the second caliph, Omar, short time after the Prophet's death, in his army there were some Jewish soldiers, and they told him the significance of the Temple Mount. In any case, the Islamic concept is that is Temple Mount is the Far Mosque. The name Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran. This is a later identification. In any case, from there, Prophet Muhammad supposed to ascend to heaven. The story is thus that Jerusalem and Temple Mount became the third after Mecca and Medina in their importance for Islam. As a result of that, it became a very sensitive political issue. Jews claim it to be their only holy place. The Muslims claim it is holy for them. Each of them says all of it is mine. Though Israelis give the right to the Muslims do not want to give any right to the Jews. No right of prayer, no right of entry, no right of owning any part of it. The political situation became complex, and one of the American presidents, Bill Jefferson Clinton, very naively thought that he is going to solve all the problems of the world. Somebody whispered into his ear that the Temple Mount is the crux of the Near Eastern conflict. And if he solves the Temple Mount problem, the rest of it would be a piece of cake. So he came up with a think tank that offered for the future to come in an agreement of the parties to have a division of sovereignty upon the Temple Mount. Whatever is above ground, thus including the mosques of the Muslims, will be under Palestinian sovereignty, and whatever is underground, thus including the remnants of the temples of the Jews, that would be under Israeli sovereignty. It's an ingenious idea, but in Washington. If you come down to earth, you can't have a building standing in one country and the plumbing in another country. You can't have sovereignty over the subground when all the approaches to the subground are from above ground. It's a super idiotic idea.
Yeah.
In any case, the idea leaked out, as everything in Washington, and the result was that in the 1990s, the Islamic Waqf, the religious trust which runs day-to-day matters upon the Temple Mount, began like mad to dig into the subground in order to jeopardize that plan. One of the results was very tragic. That is a large pit excavated, and from that pit they removed approximately 400 truckloads of soil saturated with ancient remains. And for the last 12 years I'm directing the project of sifting through that soil. In that soil we had until now approximately 500,000 finds.
Wow.
Covering thousands of years of history. Very significant finds, some of which even changed history as we know it, as it is written in history books.
Wow, I want to talk about those in a moment, but one of the things that you said to me earlier, which many people share this opinion, is that it's felt that Temple Mount is the most important piece of land, this little piece of land within the old city walls, and it's also politically, where many people feel like is, might be the basis for the start of a large war.
Listen, I'm an archaeologist. I deal with the past, not with the future. Mm-hmm. So I don't know anything about the future, but as for the present, I can say that it is a vulnerable point. It is an explosive place, and it is very sensitive. The Temple Mount caused lots of riots even recently. Even several months ago we have had a wave of violence which started from events of the Temple Mount. So the place is a most explosive.
Yeah. So
Temple Mount, by the way, occupies about 1/6 of the total area of the old city. Temple Mount is the largest religious compound of the ancient world.
So you've been able to at least sift through dirt, and like you said, it's almost like it makes me want to cringe when I hear about things being bulldozed and just kind of a big excavation done without any regard for what might be in there.
That was excavated barbarically, without any archaeological supervision. It is the most delicate place in the archaeology of Jerusalem. If one can squeeze out something positive from that tragedy, is to sift through that soil. And this is what we do. I do it as a result of the urging of two of my former students who found out some people who followed the trucks removing the earth from the Temple Mount, and so they urged me to take upon my shoulders this project. We carry it out with the help of volunteers coming from all over the world, coming from all facets of society in Israel, and altogether we had over 250,000 volunteers, which makes this project to be the most exposed archaeological project in the world.
So what kinds of things have you found, through this project?
As this material is very badly mixed up with the bulldozers, as it is fill material initially, we have only small finds. More than that, the larger pieces, larger architectural members, pillars, capitals, sculptured stones, building stones, they were kept upon the Temple Mount by the Islamic Trust in order to be reused once and again. The small finds that we have are pottery. We have large amounts. Pottery is dateable, and as a result of that, one can draw a kind of a graph of the intensity of activity upon the Temple Mount in different periods. We have over 6,000 ancient coins. We have fragments of figurines and statuettes. We have objects of ancient warfare, that is arrowheads, slingshots, etc. We have pieces of jewelry. We have seals, seal impressions, all kinds of clothing accessories, buckles, etc. All kinds of objects. But we have also fragments of building material, that is roof tiles, floor tiles. From the floor tiles of Second Temple period, from the time of Herod the Great, we were able to reconstruct the very lavishly decorated, colorful floors of some parts of the Temple Mount, which were made of imported stones, colorful stones, coming from North Africa, from Europe, from Egypt, from Asia Minor, imported. And we were able to reconstruct the patterns, which are very beautiful geometric patterns. I guess that the coins rolling on the floor from Jesus turning up, the tables of the money changers were rolling upon these floors.
Wow.
Because it is only a few decades after those floors were laid down. So we have the floor patterns, we have objects from all periods, mainly from the time of David and Solomon, some 3,000 years ago, up till our own time.
So you said that some of the things you found altered the view of history?
Yes, for example, again, we have the shape of the glory of Temple Mount in Second Temple period. The sages said about the Temple Mount, they hated the guts of Herod.
Yeah.
Herod was a no-no. In any case, they praised him for building the temple, though they hated him.
Yeah.
So they said that he who didn't see Herod's building didn't see a magnificent building in his lifetime. And that magnificent building, we couldn't see anything of it. Now we can see the beautiful floors of that building. Concerning the early Christian period, most of the history books, they write that Temple Mount was empty at that time. We can establish now, based on the evidence that we have, that there was much and intensive activity upon the Temple Mount between the 4th and 7th centuries of the Common Era. the so-called Byzantine period. We have pottery, we have abundance of coins, we have cruciform pendants, we have building remains, we have mosaic floors, etc. We may even say that there was some ecclesiastic activity. We have fragments of chancel screens of church buildings. So we can say for sure that the Temple Mount was not empty. It is true that the Jewish traditions upon the Temple Mount were adopted by Christianity and transformed towards the Holy Sepulchre. It is true that itineraries of pilgrims, Christian pilgrims, during the early Christian period did not include the Temple Mount, but the evidence is very clearly pointing towards the Temple Mount being occupied and even by ecclesiastic structures.
So it's pretty fascinating that the history of the Temple Mount reaches back all those thousands of years ago, and today just still remains a very big area of political controversy. And certainly there's, I guess, this sense of discovery that's sitting there that can't be accessed.
Yes, actually every day in the Sifting Project we have finds which illuminate dark corners in the history of Jerusalem. It's a fascinating work.
Yeah. Now, today also you're going to be taking us on a tour of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. What can you tell us about that?
The Holy Sepulchre is in the heart of the Christian quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. The present-day building, most of it is medieval, dating back to the 12th century and on. The first building at that spot was built by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century of the Common Era. That building is an ugly building, not very much inspiring. In comparison to churches in Europe or in other parts of the Western world, and not even in the Western world, in comparison to any other church, it is gloomy, it is unattractive, it is ugly.
Why do you think that was?
On the other hand,
Yeah.
it is one of the most fascinating buildings on earth. It is a complex of buildings where every corner is a page in a history book. Every corner tells a story. Every wall of the building, every dome in the building, every altar in the building, every staircase leading down to a cellar in that building is a fascinating historical tale. So there are no buildings of that kind all around the world.
So it seems like there's this paradox here of the fascination and aesthetically, something that's not very attractive. Do you think there is an intention behind this that was a part of what they were thinking?
It so happened. Because of historical developments. The building, unlike all other Christian edifices in the world, is not property of one denomination. There is a certain division of space and division of time for ceremonies, religious ceremonies, between different denominations. The Greek Orthodox were the first, they own most of the building. But there are Catholics, there are Armenians, there are Ethiopians, there are Syrian Orthodox, there are the Coptic Church of Egypt. So there is division of ownership in the building. Many of these different denominations, they had tensions and misunderstandings through the history. It was the Holy Sepulchre that caused the Crimean War in the 19th century because of removal of some candle stands from one place to the other by one of the denominations. In any case, the Turkish authorities, they wrote down a certain status quo which was prevailing there in the 19th century, and that was accepted as law by the Turks. That law was adopted later on by the British from 1917 and on. It was accepted as law by the Jordanian authorities ruling the old city of Jerusalem from 1948 to 1967. It is accepted also by the Israeli authorities as law. So this is the only church in which by law there has to be a policeman. Yeah? So it is very exceptional in many ways. More than that, the church got neglected with time because of the division of ownership. Nobody was responsible for the whole structure. More than that, I would say, the Western world, which is mainly Protestant, the Protestants came too late. And all that was already divided between the others. Yeah. And more than that, they came here and saw the different clergy members fighting one another inside the place. And it looked to them gloomy, far from the dreams they had about a nice garden with the tomb of Christ. So they came up with other alternatives. They came up in the 1880s and 1890s with the garden tomb, which was especially made popular by General Charles George Gordon, who was a legend in his lifetime, and his tragic death in Khartoum in Sudan, where he was shortened by one head, made the place even more popular amongst Westerners. So we have competing sites. We have the Garden Tomb in northern Jerusalem. We have the Holy Sepulchre in the heart of the old city. And all that created all kinds of tensions around the subject. And all that also avoided the restoration and the proper upkeeping of the building.
How far apart are the conflicting places, the Garden Tomb versus the Sepulchre?
Half an hour walk.
And is there any expert opinion on which location, or if either location is accurate?
Look, I'm a Jerusalemite for the last 68 years. I was not around when the funeral took place. Yeah. I only established my understanding of the subject through the historical sources. We have a very important source of the first century who was born in Jerusalem and left us some writings. That is Flavius Josephus, or Joseph, the son of Mattathias the priest. He was a priest born in Jerusalem who later became a general in the first revolt against the Romans, and still later became a historian in the court of the Julio-Flavian dynasty in Rome. He describes Jerusalem of his time, which is several decades after crucifixion. He speaks about 3 different walls that existed in Jerusalem. One of those walls was built by King Herod Agrippa, the grandson of Herod the Great, about a decade after crucifixion, so that is out of question. So the so-called second wall was the outer wall of the city in the time of crucifixion.
So now we have, as you mentioned, 2 spots, the Garden Tomb and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, as 2 areas of contention as to where the tomb of Christ is. What do experts think?
Jesus had to be buried outside the city because no Jews were buried inside the city. According to Jewish halacha or religious law, tombs contain impurity, and it has to be at least 50 cubits from the last building of the city, outside the city. And the question is, what was the outer limit of the city in the time of Jesus? Where is the second wall? That matter is very much debated by scholars, because, first of all, the potential line of the second wall is in an area which is densely populated and densely built up today and cannot be excavated. The second problem is that in the descriptions of Flavius Josephus, the second wall gets only one sentence, too short a description, and therefore the subject is debated. Not only that, there is it's a bombshell, because wherever you put the wall, it either justifies this or that view, and behind each of the views there are either very strong and very opinionated Catholic scholars, and when behind the other one there are very strong and very opinionated Protestant scholars.
Right.
I'm in a very good position. I couldn't care less about any of them. So I'm rather objective in this. I think that Christians shouldn't care also about the exact location, because he is anyhow not there.
Right.
He has risen. As an archaeologist, I can say for sure that the traditional location in the Holy Sepulchre is a very good one. First of all, it is most probably just outside the second wall, though today it is in the middle of town. It was outside the wall in the time of Jesus. Second, in the complex of the tomb, of the building of the Holy Sepulchre, there is one rock-hewn cave, which is a burial cave dating back to the Second Temple period, 1st century BC or 1st century AD. And that helps very much the potential identification. Point number 3 is very important. That is a place about which we have a tradition from the 4th century and on, which is a little bit more than a fortnight. So I guess that such an important place, the place of crucifixion, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, would not be forgotten by the small Jerusalemite community of the followers of Jesus, the Judeo-Christians of that time, and they passed it from one generation to the other until they got to the 4th century. So that narrows the gap between us and the 1st century and leaves a gap only of about 3 centuries.
Yeah.
That gap is a problem, but again, archaeologically, I cannot say anything against the possibility that the Holy Sepulchre is the authentic place. On the other hand, I studied myself the competing site of the Garden Tomb, which is a marvelous place for devotional activity. It's an ideal place. It's a beautiful garden. It is a place well to the taste of Westerners. It is a wonderful sight. But the burial cave there is much, much earlier than the time of Jesus. It dates back to the First Temple period. To the best of my understanding, it is of the 8th or early 7th century BC. That is centuries before Jesus. And Jesus was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, which is said to be a new tomb.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating points, and I'm looking forward to having you bring us up to the church and having a look around. So before we wrap up here to head over to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, over your left shoulder, there's an abbey over there. What can you tell us about that place?
That building was built around 1910. It is a result of the visit paid to Jerusalem in 1898 of the Emperor of Germany, Wilhelm II, who got that plot from the Turkish Sultan, Abdul Hamid. The building standing there is a Catholic building. It is the Dormition Abbey, dormition, that means the place of sleeping. That is the place where the Virgin Mary slept forever, according to tradition. The place is the summit of Mount Zion, which is the Christian appellation of that place. Mount Zion has an agglomeration of Christian edifices upon it. Next to this building of the Dormition Abbey is also the Room of the Last Supper, the Cenaculum, and there are other places as well, such as the house of Caiaphas, the high priest in the time of Jesus, in which Jesus was allegedly arrested, etc. There are many other Christian edifices.
There's really no direction you could look at in this city and not see something of historical significance.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And that makes me enjoy the place where I live.
Hello. Good morning. Good. How about you?
Yes.
Good.
This is the main street of the Christian Quarter. We are in the front of the Holy Sepulchre. The front faces south. Unlike most Christian edifices, the entrance to which is from the west, and you proceed east towards the rising sun. This facade of the building is Crusader, dating back to the 12th century. Now, there was a double entry. One side is blocked since the beginning of 19th century. Inside that blocked area were the tombs of the Crusader kings of Jerusalem from Baldwin I and on. Those tombs were destroyed during a fire that took place here in 1808. Following that fire, the Greeks blocked up the entrance and put a staircase against it on the inside, leading up to the chapel of Golgotha. Now, the facade itself has two stories. It has the second story supported by a projecting cornice, which is sculptured. That cornice in style is Roman, and probably it stems from the Temple of Venus, which was dismantled by Emperor Constantine, who in the beginning of the 4th century built the original building at the site here. So the original building was inaugurated around 335, following a previous visit of Empress Helena, the Emperor Constantine's mother, who allegedly, according to a church father named Eusebius, carried out excavations here. She was like the modern archaeologists. She excavated and always found what she wanted. Now, what she found here were the remnants of the true cross, but she found more than what she needed, actually. So they checked the pieces of wood against some sick people, and the one piece that cured the sick was regarded to be the holy cross upon which Jesus was crucified, or the Vera Cruz. Now, that cross was taken in captivity by the Persians in 614 and returned to Jerusalem a decade later. In any case, many pieces of that cross are scattered in different churches in Europe. If you put all of them together, you get a forest. Now, the Holy Sepulchre present-day building has 5 major parts. There is an outer courtyard, the parvis, underneath which there are large cisterns. They collect the rainwater which was gathered from the roofs of the building. It was a large building, and the roof was regarded to be a catchment area for rainwater. So actually you can take a boat and have a trip in the cistern underneath here. Now, in front of the forecourt here, there was a colonnade. You can see here one half of a column and the beginning of the springing of an arch.
Yes.
That arch was supported by a pillar upon which this lady sits. You can see the pillar base here.
Yes.
Yeah, and there was a whole row of pillars here with arches. Ahead of us is the main entrance. Again, it is Crusader. At the front of it, in the floor, there is a wooden cover, which underneath which is buried Philippe d'Aubigny, the educator of King of England Henry IV, one of the people who signed the Magna Carta. He is buried here. Inside, there are two major parts. One is the round part, in the center of which is the Holy Sepulchre, that is the rotunda. It is surrounded by pillars and topped by a dome. Another part is the Catholicon, which is a squarish part, which marks the center of earth. And that part is in the hands of the Greek Orthodox. Two other parts are one elevated, that is the Chapel of Golgotha where crucifixion took place, and a subterranean part where Empress Helena found the remnants of the true cross. The building in present day shape follows more or less the Crusader building, which was built in the 12th century, following the conquest of Jerusalem the last year of the 11th century, 1099, July, when the Crusaders ended. One of the first tasks was to rebuild the Holy Sepulchre. So the building belongs to different denominations who share parts and share also time at different points, which are important to all denominations.
Yes.
We entered the Holy Sepulchre. At the entrance there is the stone of anointment, upon which the body of Jesus was laid when he was taken down from the cross. We are here in a section which is property of the Armenian Church, and the place marked with the dome above, this is the place where Mary watched her son being crucified. This is the place of the Standing Mother, or the Stabat Mater. Now, this is a place to which I enjoy coming, because to watch people and the reaction to the stone of anointment, which is right at the entrance to the Holy Sepulchre, is one of the most fascinating things from the point of view of psychology and people watching.
Yes.
There are people who kiss the stone.
Yes.
There are others who stretch upon the stone in order the stone to touch as many possible parts of their body. There are yet others who bring from home a handkerchief that they soak in perfume and then squeeze it to the stone and then collect it again and squeeze it back to the bottle. That is perfume that touched the stone. There are others for whom it is very difficult psychologically to absorb the situation, and they begin mumbling and they begin showing psychotic signs.
Wow.
The hospitals in Jerusalem are full with such cases known as the Jerusalem syndrome.
Jerusalem, they have a name for it, Jerusalem syndrome, that
Yes.
people just overcome and
Yes,
have a
it
psychotic
is.
break.
It is mainly happening to Westerners. Now, the stone itself is allegedly the stone upon which the body of Jesus was washed and prepared and purified for burial.
Wow.
When Emperor Constantine came here, he found here a natural hill. The hill is named in the Gospels Golgotha, but that name is neither mentioned by Josephus nor in the Hebrew Bible, neither in the writings of Flavius Josephus or in the writings of any other historians of that time. So we are quite puzzled about it. The name Golgotha means in Aramaic language skull, skull hill.
Oh.
When Emperor Constantine came here, found the remnants of that rocky knoll, which stood there since the time of Jesus, and he cut it and left two cubical pieces of the rocky hill. One of them was where the cross stood, and that is the Chapel of Golgotha. The other one included a cave and that is the burial of Christ. That rocky cube, which included the cave, disintegrated as a result of constant fires which occurred in the church. We are here in the major part of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the rotunda. It is a round structure which has in the middle another edicule, or another small chapel. The small chapel has a turret on top, and it is made of pinkish colored stones. This structure, which includes the tomb of Jesus, this structure was built by the Russian Tsars after the original rocky structure that existed here disintegrated. Inside there are two chambers. The first one is the antechamber, in which there was the rolling stone, which was found to be unrolled by the women who came to visit the place 3 days after crucifixion, and they are the ones who found the tomb empty. In any case, a remnant, an alleged remnant of the rolling stone is there. By the way, the rolling stone was not round. And of course, these were non-singing rolling stones. The name rolling stone in Aramaic is golal, and it is a name for any stone that blocked the entrance to a burial cave. Even if it was a squarish plug, it is named rolling stone. So we have about 1,100 burial caves around Jerusalem from that time, and only in 4 of them we have round rolling stones. The chapel of the rotunda, which is round, and it is covered by a dome. The dome in antiquity was open to the sky. There was a direct contact between heaven and earth in the building, and it is surrounded by pillars. If one looks at the pillars, they look non-proportional. Pillars are original pillars of Constantine of the 4th century. But in the 12th century, when the present-day church was built, they were cut each of them by half. And therefore the non-proportional look of them. They were much taller, 2 times taller. Actually, the 2 pillars behind me are made of 2 halves of 1 pillar of antiquity. In any case, this structure of the tomb of Jesus was repaired and studied and checked recently by the University of Athens in Greece. The scholars who came here, they reinforced the building, which until several months ago was surrounded by steel scaffoldings. It was like that since 1920s, and they were removed only recently. They excavated also underneath the building and found the remnants of the true bedrock, which really exists underneath. So we are here in the rotunda, which is the major part of the Holy Sepulchre, and it has the tomb and has the empty tomb where resurrection took place. Most of the area here is in the hands of the Greek Orthodox, who were the first to be here. They are directly continuing the Byzantine Empire, and therefore they have the vast majority of the property within the complex. Over there is the Catholicon, which is a large church in the hands of the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate.
So we're deep into this area where we have the tomb, and here we have, through here you can see original walls of the tomb, and here. So in this inner sanctum here, a very holy place, we're in the tomb of Jesus. And you can see through this plexiglass here, behind this door here, you know, it's the original stone that would have been there when Jesus was entombed here. You have to cross a couple of barriers to get into here, but it's an extremely revered and holy place.
Professor, good morning.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, people, we are here in a small chapel which belongs to the Syrian Orthodox community. This community, the members of which are mainly scattered in Iraq in Syria and some of them recently also in the States. This community is very much persecuted and very poor. This is the only community which did not sign the agreement between the different denominations in the church for the restoration. And therefore the place is very neglected. You can see remnants of fire. The altar is wooden and it is badly affected by the conflagration. Something which is the most fascinating about this part is that here there is inside a rock-hewn burial cave. The burial cave has one chamber, and perpendicularly into the walls there are burial niches cut to the depth of 2 meters, into which the bodies of the deceased were laid. Now, after about a year, after the decay of the flesh, they came back, collected the bones of the deceased into bone boxes, and freeing the burial niche for the next generation to be buried in. Now, the bone boxes were laid upon a shelf which is cut in the floor. There is a central depression surrounded by 4 sides of a shelf. On the shelf, they put the bone boxes one above the other. The burial customs reflected by the plan of the cave dated back to the early Roman period, 1st century BC, 1st century AD. It is today known as the tomb of Nicodemus, but actually the ancient church cut through it and the building went through it, so they buried it underneath the ancient building. They couldn't care less about the cave. The cave was looted in antiquity. That cave testifies for the probability of this area serving for other burials as well. It strengthens the identification of the place here as the authentic place of crucifixion and burial of Jesus. So inside is the burial cave. It is a true burial cave from the time of Jesus.
And that is validation, for
At
this
least
being,
toward the possibility.
Yeah, towards the possibility.
This is the center of Earth, the navel point of Earth. According to Jewish tradition, the center of Earth and the area first created by the Almighty is the protruding rock, which is underneath the dome of the rock at the Temple Mount. All those Jewish traditions were transferred in the early Christian period to the newly built Christian shrine, which replaces the Old Testament and the old religion. This is the Holy Sepulchre, built by Emperor Constantine. And here, this stone marks for the Greek Orthodox the center of Earth. The floor here is a modern floor, but it imitates exactly the same patterns which were here in an earlier medieval floor. Now, the altar is behind the wall according to the Greek Orthodox tradition. Behind the altar, the Greek Orthodox carried out excavations in which they found the bedrock and found some houses of the Roman period leaning against the rock. On top there, above us, is a dome, a second dome after the dome of the Rotunda. It seems that the dome is well preserved from the 12th century, and so are many other parts of the building. So this is the largest unit in the hands of the Greek Orthodox. This is a different world.
It is.
We have an organ, we have confession booths, so you know that you are in the Catholic world.
Yes.
Now, in Catholicism, it is accepted that the way of the cross had 14 stations of the cross.
Yes.
From the place of judgment to the burial place. So the last stations of the cross are all concentrated within this complex of the Holy Sepulchre. The whole tradition about the Via Dolorosa, or the way of the cross, got crystallized in the 13th century. And it was most probably by Germans, Europeans. In Europe of those days, most of the population was illiterate. And they had difficulties in reading the Gospels. So they had to act it, that they played with actors in order to let the population know the Passion of Christ. And when they got to Jerusalem, they were looking for the different stations which were in the plays that they watched in churches in Europe. And actually, this is a result of those medieval fabrications.
The Via Dolorosa was.
Yes.
Yeah. So the
So
actual
the
stations are
actu-
here.
No, in actual way of Jesus, from the place where he was judged to the place where he was executed on the cross, that is probably a totally different road. The Via Dolorosa comes from the east, and they identified the ancient fortress Antonia, named after Mark Antony, built by Herod the Great, in order to honor Liz Taylor's friend, Mark Antony. But today, many of the scholars think that Pontius Pilate had his judgment and had his residence in Jerusalem in Herod's palace, which is behind us in the western part of the city. So the way of the cross was totally different, and this is a medieval, much late tradition which is far from reality. So on the left-hand side where the light comes in, there is a small courtyard. A group of people from Texas got in touch with me, and they told me that they found out through some secret messages, and they found out the exact location of the Ark of the Covenant. And all signs pointed towards the courtyard in front of the toilet of the Holy Sepulchre. They asked for permission to dig there. They didn't get the permission, and by that it ended. This strange story, but there are lots of people think they know where the Ark of the Covenant is. Please tell them it is in Fort Knox. We are now in the chapel of Saint Helena, named after the mother of Emperor Constantine, Empress Helena, who came here in the late 20s of the 4th century and allegedly carried out excavations in which he discovered the remnants of the true cross. The place of the discovery is shown here, in this place. Actually, this is an artificial cave. You can see the bedrock here, and the bedrock continues also behind this wall in the chapel of Saint Vartan, which is also part of the Armenian property within the Holy Sepulchre. This chapel has an ancient quarry. Actually, this cave is man-made. It is result of the quarrying, and you can see the imprints of the stones removed, or the scars of the stones removed in the ceiling. The ceiling shows the remnants of the stones which were removed, and they are large blocks used for public construction. It is not for some private house which needed those very large ashlar blocks. In any case, this quarry, you'll be surprised, is of the 8th century BC, time of the Davidic dynasty, some 2,700 years ago. This is much before the Christian activity here started, following the crucifixion of Jesus in the 30s of the 1st century. Now, in this place here, there are lots of interesting details. First of all, we came down here by the steps, and we are in an artificial cave. Second, the space here is subdivided. That half over there is Greek Orthodox. This half over here is Catholic. Now, the Greek Orthodox place there marks the alleged place in which the remnants of the true cross were discovered by Empress Helena. In the middle, there are remnants of a wall painting, which is not of artistic value, and the date of which is not exactly clear to me. In any case, we are here at the altar, which belongs to the Catholics, and above it there is a statue of Empress Helena, to whom the place is dedicated. She is holding the true cross in her hands. At the bottom here is a very surprising dedicatory inscription. The inscription is dedicated to one of the Habsburg dynasty, Emperor Ferdinand of Mexico, who was murdered in Mexico. This is one of the descendants of the Habsburg dynasty from Austria, Vienna. Now, the most interesting part in this whole complex is the vaulting which leans against the rock-cut roof on top. You can see some holes for drawing water, meaning that this place served as a cistern. They gathered rainwater from the roofing areas around, and through these holes they drew the water up. Now, if you wonder what is the date of these holes, it is supplied by a cross in relief, which is visible here. Now, the cross is Crusader. During the 12th century, they did not believe that this place of discovery of the cross. So the identification of this place as the place of finding of the true cross is rather late. Behind this wall is the chapel excavated by the Armenian fathers, and this is the continuation of the same quarry. The quarry is interesting because geologically there are here two layers of rock. One is less suitable for construction, kind of more softish. They left it as a roofing, and they quarried underneath it. They quarried the royal stone, or the so-called meleke, which is harder stone, and it is meant to serve for public construction. See them?
Oh, yeah.
There are thousands of them. This bedrock is part of the hill of Golgotha. And it has patches explained as the blood of Jesus penetrating through a crack in the rock, formed as a result of an earthquake which happened at the time of crucifixion.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to watch people. You begin to understand the human psychology much, much better after a day of watching people here. We are now in the Chapel of Golgotha, which is one of the most fascinating and most visited places in the complex of the Holy Sepulchre. This place is elevated above the level of the rest of the church, and actually it is a rocky outcrop. It is a rocky cube which was left here from the original hill of Golgotha, sown by Emperor Constantine. The chapel itself is subdivided into two halves. This half in which we sit right now is Catholic. The other half, the more important one, of course, is Greek Orthodox. Each of these two halves has an altar at the back on the eastern wall. Over there on the eastern wall, there is a Catholic altar which is decorated with small plaques of copper. They are Italian Renaissance, 15th century. Now, in the middle, between the Catholic altar and the Greek Orthodox chapel, over there is a kind of a closet. It includes pure gold objects, abundance of them. In the center, there is a Madonna. This is the Madonna of Portugal, and she is surrounded by the arch itself on the inside is made of pure gold. Wow. In the Greek Orthodox half, over there, underneath the altar, bedrock is exposed. That is the summit or the top of the rock of Golgotha, and in the rock there are some depressions. The central one, being under the altar, is the one towards which many of the pilgrims crawl underneath the altar and want to kiss that place. That is the place where the cross stood. According to the Gospels, Jesus was crucified with thieves.
Yes.
and the remnants allegedly of some other poles being secured to the rock. In any case, that is the bedrock underneath the altar. It is very carefully kept by the Greek Orthodox monks, and it is one of the targets of the pilgrims coming to Jerusalem.
So where they're crawling underneath the altar, that's the presumed area where Christ crossed.
Exact spot.
The exact spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.